And you're tuning into the chat right here on Citi TV. I'm joined, of course, by some of my favorite gentlemen. Olele Salvador, host of 30 Minutes and the Countdown. Seven Xavier, president of Alliance for Change. And finally, Kofi Boache Ansah. He is a record producer, better known as Beat Menace, and as well an audio engineer and a creative director. Gentlemen, thank you for staying with me. Now we're going to get into a very interesting conversation, but before anything at all, allow me call on Brew Services to give us a gush of Hiwale. Some cocktails, set the tone as we enter into a very exciting conversation about contracts, the lack thereof, how it can go very badly, or perhaps how artists can be able to safeguard themselves from interesting scenarios in their careers and journey. Now, we're focusing on Black Sherif, who I think in the last few months has been getting some issues with his management. First, he signed a deal with with a distribution / label or management company. He did not. The label went on and on. But first and foremost, Olele, you've been in the thick of things. You broke some of the stories that were centered in this conversation, but give us a bit of a rundown of what exactly is happening where in the camp of Black Sherif.
Okay, so just a quick backstory. So Black Sherif is reported to have been in some form of business management contract or agreement with one. Then at the time we knew him as Snap, who happens to be the investor. Investor here being pushing money into his music, his craft, and what have you, giving him that kind of lifestyle to match his stardom or perhaps his reach. Okay. And according to Snap's PA or personal assistant, he said that he was signed to his boss's label known as Wayne Chavez Consult. Okay, so the confusion was whether Blacko was signed to Chavez Consult or Blacko had, core management team where he or Chavez Consult was acting as a business manager. They also said that their responsibilities included having to negotiate on behalf of Blacko when it comes to going for gigs. So for example, if before Blacko was taking 2,000 Ghana cedis for a gig, after the success of first sermon and second sermon, which is when they came in, Blacko will be demanding more like 10,000 or 15,000. That is what Chavez Consult was going to handle. Now, what went south or what became an issue for everybody to be a part of was the fact that there was an Empire contract or an alleged Empire contract that leaked on the internet as a result of DJ Slim's expose, where he calls it an editorial, where he mentioned that Blacko had gone behind Snap or Chavez Consult back to sign a contract with Empire, and the gentleman is saying that Blacko has breached the contract, and Blacko went ahead to sign a contract with Empire they did not know about. But later we got to know that the gentleman in question knew about the contract, but he wasn't happy with the terms and agreements on the contract. However, Black Sherif decided to go ahead and sign the contract without his notice. Okay, so we came back here, we talked about it, what could possibly go wrong, and if they have a case, they should go to court. So now, the latest news reaching us is that Snap, aka Shadrach, now we know as Shadrach Ajay Owusu, Chief Executive Officer of Wayne Chavez Consult, has sued Blacko for breach of contract. Now, in the suit, we are told that it is set for 9th May for both parties to be in court, but this is not between an entity and Black Sherif. This is between an individual and Black Sherif, the individual being Wayne Chavez Consult. So it takes us back to where then is it's a true story, because we are being told he was signed to Chavez Consult, but in the suit is an individual who is suing Blacko for breach of contract. And as part of the suit or the writ of summons, he's looking or praying the courts to give him the opportunity to injunct activities related to Blacko. So these include having to go on stage to perform, no DJ or nobody can reuse or use Blacko's image for anything whatsoever, and the court should also appoint a receiver to receive all Blacko's funds until this is solved and everything. And pretty much that's it. So where we are right now is that, long story short, we are not seeing a court case between Chavez Consult and Black Sherif. Rather, we are seeing a court case between Shadrach, aka Snap Wayne Chavez, CEO of Chavez Consult, versus Black Sherif. So we are not, personally, having followed the story since it began, we have not personally seen the contract between Black Sherif and Snap or Wayne Chavez Consult. So we can't, or I can't speak on what could possibly be
that was breached.
That's what that's the thing. We don't know what contract they have. However, people have said, or is alleged, that in interviews that were granted by Ame Adebra and Sammy Flex to Kweku Crystal, saying that Black Sherif actually had a contract with Chavez Consult for 5 years, where they were supposed to handle everything Black Sherif, his music, his brand, his image, whatsoever, for the next 5 years. He wasn't supposed to engage in any other business with any other person. And so that is what we are working with. But as to whether the details of the contracts is out there for us to know, I personally cannot speak on that.
Okay. Let me bring Seven into the conversation. As someone who's preaching a change in the industry and as a whole, I would assume what you sign, who you sign with, and enforcing the terms of said contract should be something that should be high on every artist's list. Now, taking a look at this entire scenario from an observer's point of view, I'll assume, what are your takes or your biggest takeaways from this whole scenario?
I think the creative community, everyone is on edge waiting to see what happens.
Yeah.
Because I don't think any label or management has ever taken an artist to courts in this fashion, especially one that has grown up this way. What I think happened is he signed a 360 deal. That 360 deal is basically applies to everything: your image, your masters, your management, and everything. The only thing I was a bit skeptical about was there's a Road Boys Association. So are they just tour management or road management, or are they also part of making decisions? Now I think that's where the Wayne Chavez got it wrong in the beginning, because that should have been settled. Because from there, the Road Boys, they claim they've been in charge this whole time, and this guy was just giving us money. You know, which doesn't make sense. But if the guy is saying everything about you, we are handling it in terms of like image, rights, distribution, performances. If all of that is in there, then yes, you signed a 360 deal. So the artist signed something that they have no clue what he signed, including his boys or the people behind him. And I'm guessing the label also signed something without really, maybe even letting the artist know exactly what they're signing, because it looks like they're on two different wavelengths, you know. But if he did sign whatever they're saying, then yes, he signed a 360 deal, which he cannot really just get off that easy. And that will include every single thing, performances and everything. Wow. So it's a bit tricky. Like we actually have to see what he signed, but from just speculation, he did sign a 360 deal. Wow. So yeah.
B or Kofi, having observed the industry for quite a while, been in it, seen it in various aspects. For someone who's on the rise in a very sharp and incredible way like Black Sherif, does these sort of scenarios, or does this court case hinder his advancements in any shape or form?
Sorry,
I didn't get the music. Well, does it really affect the music? And in a situation where we are now advocating for a halt in all performances, a halt in using of his image rights or anything of that sort, and perhaps even getting a receiver to collect all accrued benefits, now that songs such as Kweku the Traveler are #1 across the world, does that put Black Sherif as an artist in a very bad position?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it depends on the ruling of the court eventually, but I mean, if, you know, the court thinks that, you know, given the facts of the matter or the case, that they have to put, you know, a stop to all that, I mean, they don't have much of a choice, but they must comply. Unless, of course, I didn't see the writ of summons. It was directed, it was from the High Court, wasn't it?
Well, yes, from the High Court.
Yes, so usually, unless maybe they file a motion, maybe, you know, to a higher court or something above that. But usually that's also a process.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not a very good look. But I think there is something positive that can come out of this, regardless of how it plays out. I think it's a cautionary tale, okay, to both investors and also talent, to be really careful about, you know, what sort of contracts, you know, they give out. And I mean, for artists, musicians, or talent in general, I think it's imperative that, you know, you do find, you know, a legal practitioner, you know, a lawyer, a skilled lawyer who understands, you know, the entertainment business, or in this instance, you know, the music business, to like go over such contracts to ensure that everything is, you know, spick and span.
Now, are a lot of artists at risk of signing such contracts? Because usually when you start off and you have someone who's willing to put in the money, put in the resources, put in the marketing to ensure that you blow up as an artist, you might feel inclined to sign whatever deal that is offered to you. Now, how, and we'll get into like maybe the to-do list for artists as they get on the coming up, but how do artists prevent themselves from signing bad deals? And is this something that you can easily see through, Seven?
Okay, first and foremost, I like to say 360 deal is not a bad deal.
Okay.
It is not a bad deal
At all.
But when you're coming up as an artist, the typical artist now will come to you and they most likely don't even have a place to record. There's no way they can get any money to shoot a music video. They can't afford to buy an instrumental, a good enough instrumental to use. It's a bunch of things they can't afford. So imagine you put your money in, you pay for a beat. MOG would tell you it's 5,000, 5,000 for a beat now. So you want an MOG beat, paying 5,000 CDs for it. You're recording at a good studio, good enough studio. Nothing, 100 CDs an hour. That's like the lowest you get, like 100 CDs an hour. Let's say you book 8 hours to record a song. The mix and mastering, another couple of thousands will go into that one. You shoot a video for the artist.
That's tens of thousands.
There's tens of thousands and everything. Now, the thing is, these artists are would now turn around and tell you it is their song. No, it is not your song. They start to tell you it's their video. And I've been through that before with an artist that I work with, where now I realize his new companies actually they have actually taken the rights on the YouTube videos that we had and the other songs that we had, yes.
Wow.
But I paid for every single thing in there.
Wow.
You know, so in this case, an artist will see it as a bad deal because, oh, it's my song. I don't have access to my song anymore. Yeah. This and this and that. So, but then like these things have to be spelled out properly for them to understand that you came to me with your voice. I did everything else to make you who you are. I own the masters. Like you hear this a lot. Oh, my masters and then this and this and that.
Yeah.
No, it's really, if you're coming as an album coming artist, definitely you're not going to own your masters because there's no way I'm spending all this money
to get
and then
nothing.
you think that it is your song, it is your thing too, and I'm actually trying to cheat you out of this, you know. So it's education is needed to teach everyone. This is what it is. This is what the whole business is. That it's intellectual property. Yeah, you still own your publishing, which is fine, but there's certain things that I own. If I shoot this video for you, there's no way you can turn around and tell me you own that video. There's no way. There's no way.
So how do investors protect themselves, and how do artists who may be taken advantage of, so perhaps there's not as much investment made into their craft or them as a person, but the benefits are expected of as if the investor or the beginning investor had put in everything that is needed? I don't know if I make any sense.
Well, there's always, I mean, the things that investor will provide should be listed in a contract. You know you're getting maybe like 3 singles, the 2 videos or 3 videos. You're getting this, they'll probably get you features here and there. These things should be spelled out. So you make sure these things are in there. If something that you like, there's something that you want to go with. If within the year or the specified time, these things don't happen, of course, that means he reads the contract, and then you can easily leave. But in the case of Black Sherif, where the house was divided and then the cars and everything, I'm not sure if that was all in the agreement in the contract. If it was, then at least the company was doing something. I'm sure they had a recording studio.
Yes.
So
well, according to him.
So he was recording and all that. So maybe he was doing part of it or some part of it. Nobody really knows why he left. I mean, that's one thing that we should all really try and find out. Maybe he just wasn't happy with him. Maybe he thought he could do better on his own. Because sometimes you sign an artist. The artist thinks he's good. He thinks it's the best thing ever to happen to the music scene. But you sign him and you realize he needs work. So okay, maybe for the next 6 months we're not putting out anything. We are working on studio, this and this. But some of them will tell you, Charlie, my fans for London, they wait my single. You know. So in that case, they want to leave. You know, and some of them have left. You know, with such things going on. So yeah, it's a million reasons why he left, and there's a lot of lessons to be learnt. Also, there's a creative arts court which was launched last year. I hope this thing goes in because that will be probably the first case that we know of. So we really hoping to see this thing to get to an end, and let's see how it works out.
Absolutely.
You know, for everyone. Yeah.
Now, Olele, being in the thick of things, what have been your biggest observations about this entire scenario as it's played out?
I mean, first thing, and I think I spoke to Kofi about this when the thing started. You know, we've been in talks, and one of the things we realized was when these artists get into that level, they still play with certain things like these. You know, because I think if you're an artist and you realize that you get into a space where you are the hottest thing in town. I mean, of course, when you start, you don't have money to employ maybe the right PR machine, the right lawyers and stuff like that. But as soon as you get into that space, I mean, reinvest the money, you know, get the services of a good PR machine, get the service of a good, good lawyer or a chamber that can always represent you because you were a big brand, and obviously the foxes will come after you. You know, so you need to make sure that all those loose ends are properly, you know, tightened and everything, so that you wouldn't have to stress yourself. Because when this thing broke out, right, one thing that everybody was looking out for was to hear from Black Sherif, right? It took a while before we saw a press release, and even that first press release wasn't the press release we were waiting for. So they dropped the press release. It was just bare. Then they dropped another press release again. So there was no consistency
about what they were putting out.
You get me? So the damage control was not even that great, you know. And now you have a situation like this where people are wondering, okay, who is going to defend Black Sherif in this matter? The last thing I checked before we sat here tonight was the fact that there was a letter that was put out by Hits FM where it was supposed to be termination of business management contract with the said gentleman. Interestingly, that letter was dated 8th April. And then the suit that we are talking about today is dated 11th April. Now, in the termination letter, it is said that the chamber representing Black Sherif have decided to terminate whatever business contract they have with.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Just up and terminate.
Exactly. Just allow me to read a line here,
Please.
Which is very interesting because they said that they had gone back and forth where they've had discussions concerning the contracts. So let me just put this up really fast. Okay. So this is from, and forgive me if I butcher the name, Kukuhenya and Luche. Kukuhenya and forgive me. But it says April 8th, Mr. Shadrach Eje Owusu, termination of business management contract. We act as solicitors of Mr. Mohammed Ishmael Sherif, on whose instructions we write. Our instructions are that by an agreement dated 18th August 2021, which is the first contract, the supposed contract Black Sherif signed with Chavez Consult, right? The agreement, our client appointed you as his manager. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. In this letter, it is stated that they appointed him as a manager.
Not an investor.
Not an investor. Okay. And they didn't even state the Chavez Consult. They are actually talking to Shadrach Owusu as the manager. So now it takes me back to the conversations where we were having and asking ourselves, okay, in what capacity was the gentleman
as
working
an investor, as a
manager, what? Because the road boys say they employed the services of Mr. Shadrach as a business manager. So if the structure or the organogram is anything to go by, he's working under the auspices of Road Boys Association. But this letter says appointed you as his manager. So we are not even too clear on what kind of management it was, right? Then you continue to say We have our client's instructions to confirm our client's acceptance of the termination of the agreement following discussions between you and our client.
So they had mutually agreed to terminate each other. So where from the counter sue?
So that is what we are saying, that we need to now go back to what the contract is saying. Now, I'm not too sure if you are familiar with the case Daniel is it G Money or
G World?
G World Entertainment. A similar situation. Case Daniel activated a clause in his contract where he was allowed to look into the books of G Entertainment, right? And this is because he felt like the money he was making
Didn't correlate
it didn't correlate with how big the song was, right? And at the time, he wanted to even just walk out and then set out what's the name of his label? I forgot it, but set up his own label, right, to do his own thing. But on the contract, he was supposed to do 2 albums for G Entertainment. He's done the first album. The second album had Would You on it, which was
a big song,
right? And he had done about 4 or 5 songs on that song, but he felt that no, I'm still not making enough money, so I want to check the books. So he got his lawyers. They came. They kept postponing. The label kept postponing. One thing that really got me laughing was the fact that the CEO said he was getting married and so he wasn't going to be around. And he said, no, we don't need you to be around. We just want to check the
You
books.
can't audit his own.
On the day they were checking the books, the label brought a laptop. So the accountants working with Kis Daniel's lawyers were like,
where are
the books? We need a laptop. Like you give us a laptop and everything. Long story short, the lawyers activated the clause that, okay, if you're not going to allow us to check the books, then our client is free to go. Then the label countersued that he hasn't fulfilled certain parts of the contract because he still has some songs to give. So if anybody engages Kis Daniel in that regard, they'll sue them. So what Kis Daniel and his lawyers did was they changed his name from Kis.
Because they own the name.
They own the name.
The image, the rights, the names.
You get it. So I was reading like, okay, if this thing could go anywhere at all, maybe Black Sherif could just add 1 F to his name, and then we are good to go. Because in the suit it says nobody should use Black Sherif's music. If you're a member of his Road Boys team, whatever, you can't even go on stage. You go and shout Black Sherif. These are the injunctions they are looking for.
Name and likeness.
Yeah, name and likeness. A company who has signed Black Sherif to maybe be an ambassador for something cannot use him. So it's like what they're asking for is crazy, and they're asking for revenue from all his streams, including songs that they were not involved in. And that's why I find it a bit weird. Like Kweku the Traveler, which is by Empire, and songs like Money and other songs that Black Sherif released, because these investors or this guy came in after Second Sermon was released.
Really?
Yes.
The second sermon.
The second sermon. They came in after, and per the dates here, 18th August 2021.
Wow.
That was when they signed the contract, and I have a picture of that contract here, where the gentleman was showing it to Sammy Flex. So yeah, you 24th August, as you can see. So you see the gentleman's name, Shadrach.
Yes.
24th August 2021. So that was when he came.
And this is after Black Sherif had gotten considerable
traction.
Yeah.
So the funny thing is, based on the stories we've gathered, right, when Black Sherif started, one gentleman as part of Black Sherif's team, apparently had some form of relationship with Shadrach, right? So he kept poaching Sherif to, Charlie wanna board this, so Charlie if he help him, that kind of thing. And the guy at the time wasn't interested, right? So Blacko drops first sermon, then he drops second sermon, then he goes like, okay, you know what? Okay,
I'll sign you.
Let's do some business.
Okay.
So what do you want? Tell me what you want, and I'll provide it.
Okay.
So according to what they are saying in the contract, according to the Chavez guys squad, all that Shadrach and all that Sherif asked for, they actually wrote it in the contract. That include money, cars, and that's why in DJ Slim's expose he said they gave him cakes, they gave him shadows, they got him a house, they gave him a studio, and so on and so forth. Now, reliable information reaching me is that they sat down, had a meeting, and they were supposed to have done some kind of compensation. I'm talking about with each other, right?
Yeah.
So one of them being is, okay, why don't we you said you want us to do songs for you, so we'll do the songs for you. Now some fun, some call.
Okay.
But for some reason, they couldn't get the signature of Shadrach to
So-
pen the agreement. So it's like there's been a back and forth, back and forth. So seeing the counter suit is a reaction to the Kweku the Traveler blow up. Because then again, the money is not going to come to.
Yes. Okay.
I hope it makes sense. Yeah. So it's just like Kofi said. Regardless of how you look at it, it's a lesson for both parties, right? As an artist, a young artist coming up, you want to make sure that when you are starting, you don't know when you're going to blow, because blow not get formula. But as soon as you blow, immediately
You need to
find
be-
the right team to that boys thing. It go worry.
Honestly. Now, Kofi, let me bring you into the conversation and get your final thoughts on this. Now, what's the way forward? If you could look into a crystal ball, perhaps, and advise the best way forward after this particular saga, especially in the life of someone like Black Sherif, what's the way forward?
A great lawyer is your best friend. The Kiss Daniel story you just told. I mean, this is the first time I'm hearing, the full story. But I find it very dodgy that the artist, Kiss Daniel, would have signed a contract where somebody was responsible for the money he was making. Maybe against some sort of investment that was pumped
Well, he was
into
supposed
him.
to get, so initially he was supposed to get 30% of performance
Right.
revenue and non-performance revenue.
Right.
Then he asked for a
Regardless of the details, provided he agreed to the terms, they should have had an auditing clause in there.
Right.
That's
Right.
non-negotiable.
No, I think that's what it is. That's what he actually did.
That's
Yeah, so it was an
So
audit.
there was a clause in
There's a
there
clause
where he
where
was
he can-
allowed to check the books.
Yeah, so basically that was an
Because
audit.
he thought he wasn't making money like that would correlate to how big the song was. Even
but
though
he
was-
never got to check the books.
No,
That's
they
to say
did.
that
They did, but it was after a lot of back and forth, back and
the
forth.
label was running away
From
having
getting
checked
the
audited.
auditors.
Okay, but
And
he
even when he
eventually
was-
got a chance to audit, right?
I mean, even when the time came for them to check, they didn't come with books. They came with a laptop.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
so what
that was
happened? I mean, fast track. I mean, before he had to change his name, what
Right.
happened? Because if, for whatever reason, he never got a chance to audit the books,
Right.
and he had to leave, and this guy said, you put your name on the contract, and so they had to had to
Leave all
exploit
that
the
behind.
technicality,
Yes.
okay, with the
Yeah.
name.
Yeah.
I still think it's bogus. Because the fact that they actually outline the fact that, you're liable to check the books, which is fair, right? And they never quite gave him the chance to do so. That's problematic. It's a breach.
No, but this is
In a way.
Africa, of course. You know this will drag. It will drag so long. You might as well
Yeah.
just change your name and move.
Because he wanted to free himself, sort of. You know, he
From
wanted
the
to
contract.
just because
Because
he
this
had,
Black Sherif thing could actually go for years.
Yeah.
and that's what
Yeah,
that's what I
that's-
think about
that's true.
when I look at Black
But
Sherif's
we
situation.
we see it, at least in the Nigerian scene, quite a few artists that years down the line decide that, okay, I don't think I want to be with this original contract anymore. I want to change it, or labels that have issues. We saw a Whiskey and EME.
Runtown too had a similar situation. like
Yes,
that.
Runtown, Kiss Daniel, and Jewel. So, how do artists navigate this, or investors in this scenario?
Well, you still need a great lawyer, and I think you just have to be very careful about the terms, but it should also be realistic. It should tally with your expectations and the deliverables that come with such expectations. You know what I mean? And also, I think we need to address the elephant in the room.
Which is?
We have a very slow justice system in this
True.
part of the world.
True.
Okay, and it doesn't make this conversation any easier.
True.
I mean, people can go to court for God knows how long, for whatever reason. But I think that's what the copyright court, what's it called? The Creative Arts
Creative
Court.
Arts
Arts
Court,
Court.
yeah.
It's supposed to be
Solve.
a sort of fast track
Yeah.
type, court to handle, issues
All
of
these.
this nature. I think just the mere importance or the implications of what intellectual property, means, as far as what's the word?
Copyright.
Perceived value, an artist or a creative person's perceived value. I think that alone is enough reason for people to start normalizing the mindset of scouting for the best lawyers they can find. And you'll be surprised. There are some lawyers who are out there who are more than willing to do pro bono work, even if you can't afford their services. Or I mean, worst case scenario, I mean, you can convince a lawyer to get a payment plan if you can't afford their services. But never put your name to paper when you do not understand, the intricacies of what you're signing.
Okay.
It's a very important.
I think even when you go global or you go to Hollywood,
In 30 seconds?
30 seconds. Megan Thee Stallion had a similar situation like that.
Actually, her thing was good though. Her situation was good. That's like the standard.
I mean,
It's a standard-ish
So
deal.
if you could go and read about it, it's like I mean, it's a perfect situation for any artist, label, artist, investor, whatever. If
Just have a
blow
look
up,
at it.
yeah, just have a look at just you understand what we're talking about. It's a perfect case study.
7 final words from you.
Like I said, we are waiting for the outcome of this. Definitely will test the Creative Arts Court's new one. I wish Blacko and Aubrey the best. Hopefully they come out victorious because we just want to hear music. We just want to, have that one person who's like blazing trails for kind of music now. So if this thing hinders anything, but at the same time, I believe justice has to be done. So if it's guilty, whatever comes up with the investor, I think there should be an easy way to have like an amicable solution to this. It shouldn't be because let him work and make some money and take your money. That's it. That's my opinion.
I like that.
That's my opinion. Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. 7 Xavier is President, Alliance for Change. Kofi Boachi Ansah is a record producer. He's an audio engineer and as well a creative director. And Olele Salvador is the host of 30 Minutes and Citi Countdown on Citi TV. When I come back, I'll be having a performance from Perez Music.